Hi there, I'm Spira. Welcome to my channel where I like to talk and teach about yoga, healing trauma, which would also be self-healing, and self-care. So today I want to talk a little bit about the different types of therapeutic modalities available to trauma survivors, whether you have PTSD or complex PTSD, which is also similar to developmental trauma. The result is the same. It's a dysregulated nervous system and damage in the brain via the limbic system. Now, there are so many therapeutic processes now that can help you, and there really weren't any before. And to be fair, the research just wasn't there. A lot of the latest research, which is still very young, has finally shown some data to back up how much success that we can get from all of these. However, having said that, the bottom line is that everyone is very different. And so there's no way for me to know what will work for you. I know what's working for me, and I actually made a video about that, but I'm going to give you a few options, not all of them. This is not an exhaustive list, but I am going to give you a few. I made a short list to give you a few. So I should also mention that the list that I'm giving you today has to do with actual therapists providing this service. So we talk a little bit about, we've talked a little bit about how talk therapy doesn't heal trauma. And I still stand by that. Talk therapy does not heal trauma. But if you are lucky and you have a therapist or a trauma specialist that you're working with, chances are that they are familiar with some of these modalities. And if they're not, find out. Sometimes we just have to ask the right questions. And if they don't have these in their tool belt, maybe they know someone who does. Okay? So some of the most popular would be IFS, which is internal family systems. That would be done with a therapist. And that one, actually, a lot more therapists are familiar with that than they are some of these other ones. So internal family systems is basically about your internal landscape, how you relate to your family, especially if your trauma was family related, and then all of the different parts. So you may be able to recognize your inner child. You may be able to recognize the part of you that is angry. You may be able to recognize the part of you that is anxious. So it's about breaking down your own personality into parts and then recognizing the needs of those parts and how we can heal. Another one is EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. So this is a technique that I have not done yet personally. I did try a little bit with one of my therapists. I wasn't a great candidate for it because it does require some degree of being connected to your body so that you can recognize where you feel certain emotions. That's really hard for me personally. So that's why I haven't really dived into that one in particular. But eye movement is supposedly, the theory behind this is that the patterns that the eyes make as they move back and forth, you can repattern things. Now, I can't explain the science behind it, but apparently it's super effective. And I can't vouch for it, like I said, because I haven't done it, but I do know two people that have done, personally, that have done it, and they said it was life-changing. So look into it, Google it, see what you can find out, and see if your therapist has trained in that or if they know someone who has, because I just heard so many great things about it. Another traditional type of therapeutic modality would be cognitive behavioral therapy, which is just called CBT. So cognitive behavioral therapy is a little bit more of a think therapy. Now this one I would only recommend if you have done some work on your body first. In other words, if you have regulated your nervous system and gotten your brain kind of back online, which I talk a lot about in my videos. So if your brain is not online, in other words, if you're still in fight or flight, dysregulated, whatever, you may have a lot of brain fog, you will not be able to, I shouldn't say you won't, I mean, you probably won't. I need to watch my phrasing so that I'm not overgeneralizing, but you probably will have some challenges implementing what you learn in cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's a lot of education, and it's a lot of education to get you thinking about your thoughts and your behaviors and how they're all connected and related. So for example, a lot of trauma survivors have these ideas of, one of the things that we tend to do is mind reading, for example. Like someone does something and you think it's because of a certain reason. So like your friend is running late, you're supposed to go to the movies or whatever, and then you automatically start assuming things like, oh, they're late because they don't care, it's not important to them, blah, 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 blah. But the truth is, they ran out of gas and they're stuck somewhere and whatever. Like it could be anything, right? But when we rush to decide what could be happening and we try to read the other person's mind, that's a cognitive distortion. So what cognitive behavioral therapy does is it teaches you about your cognitive distortions and then how you can turn that around and change and adjust your thinking, basically. Now, this is kind of similar to DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy. And this one is also about learning specific tools. So for example, it's not just about your thoughts and your feelings and your behavior, but it's also to teach you about where these distortions come from. It includes a little bit of mindfulness so that you learn about a practice. It's almost like there's a bunch of things sort of thrown in there, and it is definitely education, and it helps you to learn about why we do the things that we do. So it's all around an excellent modality. I was in a DBT group for a while, and I did find it really helpful. And I guess the best word I can use to describe it is educational, because for some people, they learn really well in that way. I'm one of them. I definitely, I'm a teacher, as I've mentioned a million times. So for me, learning in a way that seems educational, that's informative to me, I can do something with that, So that could appeal to you as well. So another one is behavior therapy, which is also known as exposure therapy. I have not done this one, but apparently it basically means to expose yourself to the triggers a little at a time. So maybe in small amounts. So maybe if you've developed a lot of anxiety, social anxiety, maybe your exposure therapy might have to do with you attending a small group for dinner, maybe 2 people, and then maybe 3 people, and then maybe 4 people. So if you understand where I'm going with this, you can see it's just to expose you a little bit at a time to the thing that triggers you so that you can hopefully reduce the triggers themselves. Another one, this is the most common one, and this would come from your therapist or your psychiatrist, pharmacotherapy. I'm sorry. I just had to say it in Greek because it's a Greek word, and that's just kind of pharmacotherapy. In English. Pharmako is medicine in Greek, okay? Anyway, so pharmacotherapy is hard for me to say in English, but it's medication, basically. So medication is good and bad when it comes to trauma. So, you might need a medication for anxiety, you might need a medication for the depression, you might need a medication for the ADHD. These are the symptoms of your trauma. So what you're doing is medicating the symptoms, but you're not really healing the trauma. Now, some therapists are against jumping into medications because the medications can also numb you, because they do reduce the body's reactions to memories and the thoughts and the feelings, right? So some therapists and trauma specialists are against the use of medication because part of the healing is to actually feel the feelings and to experience the intrusive thoughts and all of the things that are holding us back, but then to develop the tools to work with them. But when you're on medication, there is no attempt to do that because you are no longer feeling them, if that makes any sense. So I am not here to dog medication. I'm definitely not here to downplay the usefulness of it. I personally use medication as well. I keep my amounts very, very, very low. I have an anxiety medication that I use only as needed, and I really do try not to need it very often. But I have it. It's a backup, and I'm comfortable with that. I definitely don't take it every day. I really only take it a few times a month, and again, that's fine with me. I'd kind of rather use the tools that I've developed so that I can work through the stuff, right? But again, that's just me. I am also functioning pretty well right now, so take that with a grain of salt, okay? And yeah, even depression, antidepressants. So I do take an antidepressant as well, but I take a very, very low dose, and I really monitor it carefully, and I just take just the bare minimum to get myself through, because I really want to do all the work that it's going to take for my trauma, and I want to heal, and I want to get there as well as I can, and with as few obstacles as possible. And medication can be an obstacle in that process. Another one would be ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy. And that actually incorporates a lot of mindfulness techniques as well. And it's really about accepting where you're at. I've talked about this before, and acceptance takes time, it takes practice, because sometimes we can get stuck with feelings of, this isn't fair. That's a big one. That was a big one for me. I don't know if it's a big one for you, but this isn't fair. How do we get from this isn't fair to, okay, it wasn't fair, but what do I do from here? Sometimes it's not so simple. You can't just flip a switch and think differently. There's a process to it. And so acceptance and commitment therapy will help you get to that place. I've done pretty well on my own without using that specific modality. But again, I've been at this for a while, and it just sort of started happening for me, and I've been working with it as I go forward. Art therapy, big one. You wouldn't go to a regular therapist, you would go to an art therapist, but there are specific types of expressive art therapy exercises that you can use to help heal the brain. For example, bilateral drawing, using both arms to draw. That is a specific technique meant to heal and have the two hemispheres of the brain working together again. So it's literally a brain healing exercise, which is cool. But then there are other types of art therapeutic exercises that can just kind of help you build awareness, get in touch with the feelings and the things that are happening in your body, and also to even express some of those feelings, to process some of those feelings. It's similar to journaling, to kind of get it out in a way, whether it is through writing or through art. And even dance and the movement arts like that can be really helpful. But all of those, you would go to a specific art therapist, you could go to a music therapist, you could go to a dance and movement therapist as well. Breath work, you can definitely learn breath work with your therapist. I'm sure that at this point, they must have already tried to teach you something. I hope so, but you can always go to a yoga teacher for that as well. But again, this video is more about therapists and what they offer, so let's stick to that. Somatic experiencing is another type of modality, which you would have to find a specific type of therapist, a somatic experiencing therapist, and they go through years of training in that specific modality. And that one was created by Dr. Peter Levine, and he wrote the book Waking the Tiger. And somatic experiencing is actually about going back to that place, remembering specific events, and then the therapist brings you into a place where you can then sort of finish the trauma. In other words, complete the cycle. Like if you weren't able to get away in your somatic experiencing session, you would be able to envision yourself getting away. So it uses visualization as well as bringing up memories, and then using those memories to take you to the next step and how to process that and get through it. And the last one for today is hypnotherapy, and I saved it for last because not all therapists offer hypnotherapy, and not all hypnotherapists are licensed clinicians. So that's something to remember. So someone can call themselves a hypnotherapist and not actually have any training in psychology, just to keep that in mind. Not at all saying that hypnotherapists aren't helpful. I'm just sort of wanting to clarify the difference, that's all. I'm going to stop there because I think that that's a lot of information for one video. Again, there are more, and I will get to those at another time. But today, let's keep the list fairly short. I think we did at least 10 here. So I hope that this is helpful to you. And if it is, please hit the like button, and you can help me get my video watched more because it comes up in the search. And if you want to see more videos about healing trauma and yoga and mindfulness and self-healing, then definitely subscribe to my channel. And if you'd like to support me, my channel does not support me. I don't make any money from YouTube. I don't have enough followers. But you can always check out my website. Look in the description box below. I have a website. I have digital courses for sale. My business is about to go under, unfortunately. But that's a COVID thing, really. But you know, you can also just donate or purchase a course, or just go to my website and see what I have to offer. You can also join a class. Sometimes I do online trauma, sensitive yoga classes as well. If I get some interest, send me an email, let me know that you'll attend, because I actually canceled the last one. I didn't have enough people sign up. So if you're interested in stuff like that, please drop me an email and let me know. It would be great, and I can just schedule another workshop, okay? I also do TRE, which is tension and trauma release exercises. I can do that with you through Zoom, or you could even take an online workshop. But right now I'm only offering the in-person workshops, but I could do a one-on-one through Zoom. So something like that is on my website as well. I am also a Reiki master teacher, so I do Reiki healing. I've got a lot of stuff under my belt. Of course, there's the yoga too. So again, just check out all those options. Oh, and one more thing, if you want a little list on grounding techniques, it's a little cheat sheet that you can print up and save, maybe put it in your pocket. So when those moments happen when you're dysregulated, you can print it out. The link for that is also in the description box below. Okay, I'm gonna stop here. Thank you again for joining me. I hope you have a beautiful day. Namaste.